So the Robotaxi model is driven off the auto model. We need production, right? So now we're taking the EV production numbers and turning them to EVs delivered. So basically saying one and the same. Every car that's made is sold. Now, they could be sold externally, right? You and I could buy Robotaxis, but initially they're going to be company owned, right? So we have to make some assumption then about how big is the autonomous fleet. And so in 2025, I've got a fleet of 100 vehicles. And I've got that ramping to 1,000 in 2026. And I hope that is conservative. I've got it ramping to 2027 to 100,000, right? And then 1 million. And then from there, it goes up 3 million, 10 million by 2030. And by 2035, we're at about 20, 21 million. So the slow ramp here is a reflection of, we've got some regulatory things to overcome. I think FSD is safe enough to roll out as a robotaxi service in the many, many thousands of vehicles. But maybe we've got some regulatory hurdles to cross first. And that might take a year or two, maybe sometime in 2027. And then we've got the estimate for the amount of profit per vehicle per day. I think this is extremely conservative. But I've got it starting at $90 profit per day, going down to $54 by 2035. This is completely forgetting that we've got, once you have a robotaxi network up and running, it becomes a platform for other services. So it's actually likely that the net profit per vehicle per day goes up, not down. Yeah. Ultimately, it goes down because perhaps the cost per mile goes way down, like, 25 cents or something. So I think, again, given these conservative numbers, you can see the net profit growth. You start to notice it in 2027, $3 billion. And then by 2035, you're, 300, 400 billion in profit. And I'm applying a PE ratio to that of 50, which is high, but a business that's profitable and it has a lot of growth still ahead of it at this point, I think would trade at a pretty high PE. And that gets you to a, 20 trillion plus valuation, both in 2030 and also out to 2035. The reason that the valuation doesn't really go up after 2030 is because the PE multiple goes from 100 to 50. I'm really dropping that down. But if Tesla has 21 million robotaxis in the world, they probably get to 100 million at some point. So that's why the PE multiple is still pretty high.
I agree with that.
Right? If it works for 21 million, it's probably going to work for 100 million. So you can see, obviously, this is a significant value driver for the company if this business is successful. Just the scale of this is immense.
I think you're referring to net profit per vehicle per day. This just does the robotaxi, $2, maybe to 25 cents at some point per mile. Mm-hmm. But I agree with you. There's so much more that they can charge people at this point. Just like Netflix, where you have access to a Tesla movie premium. The big one, I think, is, I don't know if people realize this, but today in your Tesla, when you're going to the Tesla diner, the Tesla-owned diner, on your way there, the screen changes as you get close, and it actually will have the menu. You can order through the car, and it actually reminds you, apparently, that when you get closer, that you want to order it now, because by the time you get there, it'll be delivered to you hot, Anyway, so you can imagine that McDonald's and Starbucks and everyone else will partner with Tesla. And as it gets into the Starbucks, you've already pre-ordered it using Tesla's system, they get a cut. Tesla gets a cut. I mean, there's going to be something like this.
There's all kinds of cool things. Yeah, think about not having to wait at a drive-through line to place your order. You just show up and it's there. And of course, they know exactly how long it's going to take your vehicle to get there, so they can time it perfectly for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we put all these 4 business units together, right? And by 2035, Robotaxi accounts for about 77%, call it 80% of Tesla's value. The very last number in that column there, yeah. So it's 413 billion in valuation. Sorry, that's showing the profit in that column. And total profit of the company is about $500 billion in 2035. Okay, and implying a total company value, the PE ratio there of 45, you get to about $24 trillion valuation, which, by the way, is about the same valuation in 2030. And again, the reason that the valuation stays about the same is I've got the PE ratio coming down. And that gets you to a stock price of, $5,000 to $6,000 a share at different points in time. So, tell us where we got our robotaxi numbers wrong, right? Like,
let me ask you. You put 100%, so you can interpret that in 2 ways. I think one is that there's 100% probability that Tesla will have a robotaxi business and it'll roll out this way. Yep. The other thing, some people say, well, they're not going to have 100% of the market share. They're going to be like a commodity, and they'll have 30, 40, 50% of the market share, and then there'll be lots of other competitors. Is this number still hold up if there are a bunch of competitors that you still expect this many robotaxis out there and this much profit?
Well, if you felt that, I suppose you could cut this in half and then use those numbers. But the question is, I'd go back to the input sheet and I would say, okay, in a world where there's robotaxi competition, can Tesla still have a fleet this size?
Yeah, that's
In
what I'm asking.
2035, can they have 21 million vehicles if there's 1.5 billion vehicles in the world? Doesn't seem crazy to me.
Your answer is yes. So even if there's a bunch of other competitors that is equal to what your numbers say that of how many robotaxis are out there, you still think that Tesla's robotaxi will still hit those numbers that you forecasted.
Yeah. And I would also say too, like, where are these other companies that are doing this work?
They may not be here this year, but they might show up in 3 to 5 years.
Sure. Yeah. Well, maybe. I mean, how many years has Tesla been working on FSD? All right. It's going to take a competitor a long time. And by then, Tesla has, so much of the market. It's going to be very hard for anybody else to eat into their market at that point.
Economies of scale, lowest price, greatest value. By every metric, they're going to be so much better than any competitor. More cars on the road, lowest priced, more movies, more connection to things. And so that's why would you choose the other? But
It's funny because with the EV business, it's like this mantra, the competition's coming. Well, okay, where is it? The competition did come, but they didn't make EVs profitably. So the question for the competition is, how much money do you want to lose trying to get a piece of this market? And if Tesla gets to the scale where they can drive down the cost and drive down the price of the service, any competition is going to lose so much money trying to catch up to them. It just becomes impossible.
I mean, just back on the EVs as well. I mean, imagine if you got FSD and you have the ability to make money with your car. Tesla could theoretically just lower its price of the actual car, how much you want to buy the car. And then at that point, what happens to the competition, right? Because you can be half the cost of a competition for an incredible car. Yeah. Because Tesla knows they're going to make the money up on robotaxi services in perpetuity for the next 10 years, for the next 5 years, the car exists.
It's funny, Herbert, because, in this whole thing about BYD versus Tesla, right? And BYD making more EVs than Tesla does. Well, thanks to AJ, we know that BYD has lost $10 billion this year. So is that really successful? Okay, they've outsold Tesla if you look at just EVs. Fine. But is that sustainable? Is that success? I don't think so. I think they're in a world of hurt. So any victory there in terms of outselling Tesla is temporary. And I think it would be even more difficult for a company to compete with Tesla in the robotaxi world. There's so many factors here. Not only do you have to make EVs at scale, which no other company has been able to do yet and make money, you also have to develop the FSD software. And Tesla's not stopping, by the way. Like, it's not like they roll out robotaxi and FSD is complete. They're going to keep improving that software. So it's a moving target. I think it's going to be next to impossible for anybody to catch them at this point.
I agreed. All right. So here would be the present value calculation. If you include Robotaxi, so you don't include Optimus, but you included Robotaxi. You've looked out to 2035. You've discounted the cash flow that you've calculated. You can choose which angle. If we look at the middle part, you're saying today, if you agree with the analysis you've done, the stock price today should be closer to $686.
Yeah. Now, there's one additional factor here. We did add a buyback rate of 10% of free cash flow here, because with Robotaxi, the free cash flow starts piling up. Like, they're going to have to build, banks to hold all the cash. Right. So I've got 10% of the free cash being used to buy back stock, which the cash is still going to pile up even at that. Like, that's just a drop in the bucket. But that's one difference in this screen versus the previous one. And here you can see even if you assume a 0% long-term earnings growth rate after 10 years, you still get a $550 stock, right? If you assume a 2.5% growth rate at 600 and a 5% growth rate, it's close to 700. So you can see it's not that sensitive to long-term growth in this model.
That's present value.
Value.
If you look at this, if you do think that Robotaxi will go out in the way that you've modeled it out, at some point the stock price will be 1,700, 3,000, 6,000 kind of levels.
Yeah.
Just Robotaxi alone.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow.
Now, the two right columns of the 7.5 and 10%, it might be a little aggressive. But again, in 2035, I've modeled 21 million Robotaxis. I think if they get to that point, they're well on their way to 100 million. So
yeah, and I think you've done the modeling too, that it's not for the audience, don't think Robotaxi means ride hail, that it means we're replacing Uber and Lyft. No, no. At some point, this becomes replacing all transportation. At some
That's right.
point, people will stop buying new cars and instead buy the Teslas or just use Tesla's robotaxis and then just completely replace transportation. All these other transportation models where they're spending money on, they don't need to,
Yeah. There's a lot
including
of people that
trains, including
I'll never give
buses.
up. Yeah. There's a lot of people that say, I'll never give up my vehicle. I love to drive, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's really the wrong way to think about it. What happens if I came to you and said, Herbert, I can save you $5,000 to $10,000 a year in your transportation costs? Your answer probably is, okay, I'm interested. Right? Most people would choose to save that kind of money, right? The average American certainly would. There are some people, certainly, wealthy people, doesn't matter. They can buy whatever they want anyway. So if they want a personal vehicle, they'll get a personal vehicle, but they're still going to use Robotaxi at times. It's still going to be the most convenient option for them.
Well, I mean, think about it. What do the rich people do all the time? They have a chauffeur.
Yeah.
So, they get to the point where they want to be chauffeured because, hey, first of all, there's time is incredible, right? Time is money. They're out there doing business. They're relaxing so that when they get to the office, they can really be at, good energy. They outsource the driving, and then they buy their sports car that they ride on the weekends to love this, so that's might want to be what happens.
Yep.
All right. So this is very telling. You are at 686. If you were an analyst and you were modeling it out today, what would your price target be?
Well, let's keep going, shall we?
Oh my God. So I was going to give you the opportunity to stop here.
No.
You won't do it. Because, so let's just, are we here? Yes. So you're giving a 33% probability of Robotaxi, not 100%.
This is the next scenario. So if we looked at a scenario here where it's 1/3 of what I projected.
Okay, gotcha.
Just to see what that would be. And if you go to the next page, it calculates the present value of that at about 340.
So that's
which
not
I think
lot.
at the time was about where the stock was when we did the show.
Okay.
Right. So I was just trying to say, okay, what's baked into the market price? About 1/3 of the numbers that I was showing was baked in at that time.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but things changed a little bit since then. The stock price has gone up quite a bit since when we did this show last.
Well, the other thing that changed was that they rolled out Robotaxi. It's like alive. It's in big, so it's actually real.
That's right.
So